Okay, it's the end of the session, and Chino is still not in the video because he's upstairs. But this is his roadmap to success. So I'm going to kind of go through a medley above is what I already gone through. So I'm going to kind of go through the summation of the stuff that we went over in the session. And again, the page that this video is going to be on is going to have a whole bunch of videos. What I want you to do for the stuff I'm covering here in this video, I want you to use all this stuff simultaneously all at the same time. The stuff that's linked above, some of it, if it's covered in what I'm talking about here, I want you covering that. But if it's an exercise, like the focus exercise, the door exercise, I want you to pick like 2 or 3 of those things and really work on those 2 or 3 things till you get them pretty good. Now, you don't have to complete all 3 before you move to the next 3. Pick 3 and one of them you get done pretty well, then replace it with another one. I just find that when people try to do more than 3 things simultaneously in terms of exercises, it becomes a little bit debilitating. So the first thing we did was we talked about exercise. He is getting good exercise, better than most of my clients, but he could probably use a little bit more. Dogs sleep about 17 hours a day on average, so we want to make sure that we're getting him exercise about every 2 to 4 hours. So a couple of the creative ones that we went over inside, walking is great. Remember to let him sniff on the walk, and on the way back, try to cross the street so he has fresh sniffs on the way back. Now, if you're ever passing somebody's house and there's a dog barking, he's barking, don't stop. Keep him moving. Anytime he's reactive, increase the distance and keep some momentum going. When they stop and they focus on things, that just amplifies it really, and not the way that we want. So some of the things we can do for exercise, doggy stairmaster, which is throwing treats up and down the stairs. Remember to do it with an empty stomach the first time. Count each down up as 1, and keep doing it with an empty stomach the first time until he says, "You're crazy, I'm not going down there anymore." Now we know what the maximum number is. We want to exercise about 50 to 75% of the maximum number multiple times a day. Now, come up with a fun command word, one that goes down the stairs, one goes up the stairs. So, and not just for this, but for any time you're giving your dog a treat, the treat should go in their mouth first. They should hear the command word immediately after. My little trick is, can I feel a little bit of wetness from the dog's saliva? Then I'm going to say the command word. And if I'm going to pet the dog, I'm going to do the same thing. Sit, when it sits, I pet it, and then I say the word sit. So we're kind of putting things in context. So when you say a command word, say it twice. Once to tell the dog what to do, the second time to qualify why you are giving the dog a payment. I consider a payment paying or petting the dog, giving attention, belly rubs, whatever the case may be. All right, so the doggy stairmaster is one. He's probably going to do that multiple times a day, but I think if we can do that, a little bit of fetch. Do you play tug of war with him? Mm-hmm. Does he ever touch you with his teeth accidentally?
No.
Okay, good. So if he ever does, you would just stop playing, drop it and stop playing the game. That's a way of letting him know, as soon as you touch me with your teeth, even if it's accidental, the game stops. They're very precise about that. Okay, I also went over feeding him out of an Omega treat ball, also feeding him out of a snuffle mat. And the snuffle mat, you can make one or get them on Amazon or Chewy, SNUFFLE. And that those are helps the dog earn their food, which boosts their self-esteem and confidence. It slows down the eating process. It also helps stimulate them because they're having to use their nose to find it for the snuffle mat, and which can also be very relaxing. So there's about 4 or 5 really good positive things that come in there. Make sure that when you are feeding them that you're eating something first. I'm going to talk about feeding. Well, I don't really talk about rules, but it's on my mind here. I'm going to say. So right now he's kind of, sometimes he is a bit of a free feeder. So what I would do is I'd put the food in, I would feed him out of his bowl first before we move to a snuffle mat or the Omega treat ball. So basically put the food down, don't let him have access to it. Then the human who's feeding him would eat something in 5 more bites, a piece of chip, cracker, celery, whatever, preferably something crunchy. When you get done, tap the bowl and call him to come over. And, just Chino maybe once or twice. After a minute, if he leaves the room, then pick up the bowl and dump it empty and put the empty bowl back down. It's important to put the empty bowl back down. If he's still standing there, just keep on, ask him 3, 4, 5 times. But after that, after a minute of me calling him, if he doesn't come over, I pick it up and dump it empty and put the empty bowl back down again. And then when he does take his first bite of food, come up with your command word for eating. So whatever the word is you want to use, sushi or whatever it is, when he takes his first bite of food for 4 months, you say sushi. So after a while you say sushi, he knows that means I go and eat. And like I said, you're always going to eat something first. And if he doesn't eat breakfast, don't feed him dinner just while you're starting this transition. Right now, like a lot of humans, but a lot of dogs will only eat late at night, and that's not better for them. It's better for them if they eat morning because they use that food as fuel. Okay, we also talked about rules. Most of my clients don't have any rules for their dogs, and that a lack of rules confuses the dog into thinking that we're peers. If thinks you as a peer, then listening to is optional. So some of the rules, remember these rules should be in place for at least 66 days. I usually tell my clients at least 3 months or as long as the problem is still going on. And remember, breaking the rule is not something you should ever do to reward the dog. One of the rules is not being allowed the furniture. So when he's being good, don't invite him on the furniture because that makes it become something he wants on a regular basis. So the first rule I usually suggest is no furniture. That should be in place for at least 90 days. Get the X mat, so you have 4 of them on here to keep him off the furniture. And after about 3 months, you probably take one of the X mats out and reposition them a little bit. Now, when I want to sit here, I just take the X mat, fold it up, put it under the couch. When I get to go to the bathroom, I unfold it and put it here. Otherwise, Chino runs up, sweet, I'm gonna get a spot. Oh, darn, that thing's there. So we want to get out of a behavior pattern. Remember, it takes at least 66 days to form that behavior pattern. So we're looking for him to do it for 3 months or longer. And then the end of that period of time, I want to invite him up because I feel like doing it. Not because he's whining for it or I'm rewarding him for something, just because I want to share my couch with him. I'm making the decision. All right. And also, this is problematic for him in multiple reasons. He likes to jump up and lick one of his guardians. Now, that licking can be a way of claiming or marking. It can also be just he's OCD, but keeping him off the furniture will help with that. And there's nothing wrong with him kissing you. If you do like him kissing when he does lick you, call it kisses or smoochies or whatever the word is using that passive training. And then that's something you can do on command. But if he's doing it without an invitation, then that's not indicative of having healthy leader-follower dynamic. He also likes to drag his shoulder along the side of the couch, which is a form of scent marking. That I would disagree with. And so if you stand up, try to avoid using his word for no, his name for the word no or to disagree. I actually use a hissing sound like a cat. Now, if you do that and you get a negative response, stop using that. I would just stand up and make your energy sound like you really don't like it. Very suddenness is going to be very, the dog's going to recognize that as a disagreement. Suddenly standing up and turning to face him. So do that the instant he starts doing it. After a while, you should recognize he's going to come over and rub his shoulder on the couch. So you stop him, disagree when he's a foot away before he actually starts. And again, not being allowed on the couch will help with that. Now for the dog bed, teach him to use the dog bed. Just show him you have a treat. Throw it on the dog bed, and when he licks it up and has at least one paw on the dog bed, say beach or castle or blanket or whatever the word is you want. But remember, I want you to really emphasize from now on, any command word that you come up with should come up with a funny word, a word that's going to make you and your spouse or your friends laugh or anybody else when they hear it. The more of those that you can build in, I promise you it will have a positive impact on the dog. So come up with, call it, the name of the city where the lovely lady in your life was born, or whatever it is, something that's going to make you guys laugh and have a positive affirmation. So the first way, I throw about 10 treats in a row and wait for the dog to vacate the bed and then throw the next one and only say the command word if it's got one paw or more on the dog bed. After it licks it, goes in his mouth. So I do this about 10 treats and I wait for the dog to lose attention and then I put a treat on the dog bed like that. Man, the Guardians picked a good dog bed. It's a nice contrasty color. When he sees the dog, don't point it out. When he sees it and comes over, just say the command word for the dog bed. Third way is I lead him over, put him in a sit or an LOI, give him a treat, and then say the command word. So after a while, these are 3 ways to entice him to go there. After a while, he'll go there on his own. When he does, if you have a treat, throw a treat. So now when I come here, it rains treats. This is the best place ever. If you don't have a treat, just say the command word. Go over your impediment, say the command word. Sometimes getting up to go over there causes the dog to vacate it. If that's the case, then just say playa, or whatever the name of the dog bed is. And it shouldn't take very long, but before he starts going to the dog bed on his own. And then you remember, anytime you want to test a command, turn your head to the side so he can't see your lips. Say playa. If you look and he goes to the beach or whatever it is, then you know he's got it. If not, then you need to keep on practicing it. Other rules, have to sit at the door. Go to the door, tell him to sit one time. If he doesn't sit within 3 seconds, sit down somewhere in the nearby area and wait 1 minute. After 1 minute, go back to the door and tell him to sit again. If he doesn't sit this time, I'll walk away for 2 minutes. Next time I'll walk away for 4 minutes, 8 minutes, but make sure you're seated when you walk away. And as soon as he sits down, open that door as fast as you can. And so after a while, he'll sit as his way of saying, I want the door to open. Now, there's going to be videos that are going to be linked on making your dog sit or lay down before you let him out of the kennel. I would do the same approach when you're coming home. When you come home from work, there's a little partition between the living room and the kitchen, and he's in here, and he's all excited. So walk up, don't say anything to him, don't talk to him. Wait for, and just kind of do your business in the kitchen and keep an eye, watch him, but out of the corner of your eye. As soon as he calms down, start reaching to unlock the handle. And as soon as you reach a little bit, he's going to start wiggling and get excited. Pull back and go back to doing what you're doing. This is a form of operant conditioning. What you're saying is when you're calm, that's when I am starting the process of letting you out. and I'm going to continue this process until you show me you're excited. Once you show me excited, the process stops. No punishment, no verbal corrections. It just stops. After a while, it'll take a lot of repetitions. He'll learn as soon as I get excited or start wiggling, that's what stops the process. Now, eventually, when you do it, and remember when you're doing this, to break activities down into, first of all, the easiest version possible, then breaking down individual steps to help the dog practice each step. The first step for this one is just reaching for the door when the dog's calm. He gets excited, we pull back. Don't plan on actually making contact with the handle. Just plan on going a little bit back and forth, and don't get frustrated. It might take you 43 times. That's probably a lot. But it might take you 4 or 5 or 10 times of reaching before he settles down. But if you put in the time and effort and are not frustrated about it, after a while the dog will learn to stay calm throughout the process. And eventually you'll be able to go and open the door. Now, one of the videos is going to be how to teach the dog to wait at an open door for permission to go through it. So make sure you've achieved this for the back door and for when you come home and the dog's excited and there's a partition up, door to your bedroom. Make sure you close the door to your bedroom, because one of the rules is you should not be allowed in your bed until you give him an invitation to get on your bed. So closing the door will prevent him from doing that. Should not be allowed in the kitchen when we're preparing food. We prefer to do that with a gate open. I'm not going to link this one, but you can go to doggoneproblems.com and click on dog training tips. It's a button at the top of the page or a link. And then there's a search box. You can type in the search box, types invisible. I show how people enforce invisible blind, invisible boundary. You can watch that video. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so those are some examples of rules, but also I want you to look for ways to delay gratification. Ask the dog to do something to get something at once. So you want to go for a walk, sit. If you don't sit, then I can't even bother to pick up the leash. You want me to put your food down, sit. You want me to pet you, sit. If you're noticing there's a trend here, sit. Ask the dog to sit before you do things. Puts the dog in more of a subordinate mindset, and it's a good habit to get into. In the dog world, it's actually called manding or learning to man, which not necessarily is sit, means the dog can offer you a behavior and it influences the human, either in a good way or a bad way. And remember, if he jumps up on you, just freeze. Cross your arms and just look up. I know it's hard because he's a big dog. Just wait. As soon as he gets down, tell him to do something else before you pet him. So when he jumps down, tell him to sit. If he sits, pet him under his chin, say sit. If he doesn't sit, then don't. Again, you have to earn the privilege of attention from me from now on. So we're not going to be hard about it, but we are going to be very strict. He's going to have to do things to earn that affection, to flip that leader-follower dynamic. Now, we also talked about petting with a purpose and passive training. Petting with a purpose is if you want to pet the dog or the dog is telling you it wants attention. Petting a dog is a hard way of paying the dog. So think of anytime you're giving the dog a petting or affection, you're paying the dog for a job, either the job that you want him to do or the job he wants to do. Make sure you're paying for what you want, not the other way around. So he comes up and nudges you, nothing happens. Other than you give him a counter order, tell him to sit. If he sits, within 3 seconds, pet him on his chin, say the word sit, pet as much or as little as you want. If he doesn't, playing hard and grit works great for dating, it works great for dogs. So if he doesn't sit, show him, I gotta watch TV, I can take notes, I can check my phone. After a while, he'll start missing that because he's not getting it. If we get too much of anything, it's no longer precious. So use the watchword paycheck if you suspect your partner is petting without a purpose. Even if that person did it right, they should stop petting, tell him to sit. And if he does sit, we pet him on his chin, then explain, actually I asked him to sit before you did the X, Y, and Z, and I continue petting him, but thank you, because I do forget to pet without a purpose. And even if you want to pet him, tell him to sit. If he doesn't, again, he doesn't get any affection. After a while, he'll start coming and sitting in front of you to prepay for attention, and when he does do that, make sure you pet him, otherwise he's going back to nudging or jumping up or all the rest of that stuff. Passive training is a great way to help the dog understand what the things that we want. So anything he does that you deem a desirable behavior, mark it. Name all of your individual toys. Now, all rope can be all rope, all balls can be balls. But if he brings you a certain toy that looks like a chipmunk, call it Alvin or whatever it is. Every time he brings you that toy, come up with one command word that you say over and over again. After a while, you say Alvin, he runs over and he'll go and dig in his dog pile until he brings you the Alvin doll. So I say this when my dog eats. I'd say grub, chow, feast, and eat. Feast and lasagna. I have a command word for each dog. When my dog drinks, you can call it, your favorite cocktail. When the dog comes in the house, say casa or whatever the word is. When he goes outside, say yard. So you're putting things in context when the dog does them voluntarily and labels them. It takes about 3 or 4 months this way, but eventually say casa, he runs inside. And you could say the names of your dog toys. Also, speaking of toys, I'd like you to get him a couple, probably an elk antler or two. And try to get one that's intact. Sometimes they'll split it down the side. I find that those, if your dog doesn't like it, those are good ones to start, but they go through them pretty quickly. So I'd want you to get one where it's completely around all the way around. And I would get them on Amazon or Chewy. They're the cheapest place to get them. Make sure it's for a large dog. I would also get them a couple of real bones. Now a lot of them have this fake junk in the middle of it. I go to the green spot. You have the card for the green spot. Go in there and just get a couple of 2-inch marrow bones. Now to have marrow, he should only have the marrow part outside. Make sure you take a pen and poke that marrow through. You want the marrow inside, and it'll stink. Keep him frozen. But then when you get done, when he's got all the marrow out, you can wash and boil the rest of it, and then he can chew on the bone. It's a nice thing for him to chew on. Also get a water buffalo horn or two, but the water buffalo horn, the sides of it should be really thick. I recommended this to a client not too long ago, and she said the dog was splintering it. If your dog is able to crack it, it's too thin, send it back. When you get it right away, if it's a thin wall, make sure you send it back. Get a thick one. If you get the right size one, he'll probably will, well, he's a pity. He might go through it, but most of the time they'll actually outlast your dog. Okay, so, one other thing I forgot for exercise, scent games. Google scent games. Using the dog's nose is a wonderful way to burn some energy. Like, that's why the Snuffle-O-Mat works so great, but there's other options as well. All right, so that's petting with a purpose and passive training. You remember watchwords. So we're going to say paycheck if we suspect someone's petting without a purpose. Even if I did it right, I'm going to stop petting, tell the dog to sit again, pet it and say sit, and then say, actually, I did it the right way, but thanks for reminding me. I say celebrate if the dog is doing something I want. Remember, you only have 3 seconds. So I'm sitting here watching TV, and the dog walks up to me. My partner saw the dog walked up to me. That was 1 second. The partner said celebrate to me. That's 2 seconds. I only have 1 second to start petting the dog. So I just narrate. Somebody says celebrate. I look at the dog and I just pet it. If it's standing, I assume it came, and I pet it for a come. If it's sitting, pet it for a sit. If it lays down, pet it for a crash or chill or whatever you call it, lay down position. Avoid reaching over your head to pet your dog. You pet your dog anywhere you want except for right here. But if all things are equal, try to pet under the chin to facilitate that nose up. We want to boost his self-esteem and confidence. I also say vocabulary if you're using a wrong version of the command word. Remember, they don't speak English, so say the word, not come here, come, or whatever the word is consistently. You might want to also come up with a list of the official command words, and then just that way, if you're using a different version of the word, you can say that. Vocabulary, the person says, thank you, and they say whatever it is. I also say repeat or rerun if we're repeating a command word multiple times. Remember, the more you say it, the less you mean it. So just get in the habit of saying it once. If the dog doesn't comply, ask yourself, do I need to practice that exercise a little bit more? Let me think, what else? One thing that we didn't talk about in the session, dogs that are reactive the way that he is coming from an insecurity or a place of lower self-esteem. A great way to help fix that is to build up his self-esteem and confidence. Go to YouTube, find some easy dog training videos. Make sure they're not too hard. Everybody picks these really hard ones. Just teach your dog to do a circle. Just hold the treat in front of its nose, lure it around in a circle. When it completes the circle, pop the treat in its mouth, call it hurricane or typhoon or whatever the word is you want to use. Keep doing that until you can say circle, and the dog does the circle or the hurricane. Giving them fool's errands, it's a bad expression, but giving them something to do is a great way to redirect their attention from something else. And just like us, when we learn a new trick or command or a skill, we have a boost of self-esteem and confidence. So what I'd like you to do is try to go to YouTube and try to pick a trick or command and flip-flop. Each week, one guardian teaches that. And if it's roll over, before I put the food down, roll over. Before I get in the bed, roll over. Before I let you out, out of the kennel. But you're going to ask the dog to roll over and do this for all these things all week long. By the end of the week, you should be really good at that command. The next week, the next guardian takes over and teaches them. Not only does this boost his self-esteem, but it also helps him see you acting like a leader because you're basically teaching him a new trick or skill, and you're associated with that mentor, mentee, or protege role. And so that really helps the dog feel a little bit more comfortable and calm. Now, I want you to check in with me. If I don't hear from you, I assume everything's going great. I really want you to focus on the stuff we talked about in this video. Now, there's going to be links on this one about teaching your dog to be calm for the leash, a focus exercise, a whole bunch of other stuff, letting him out of the kennel. I want you to remember, every time you let him out of the kennel, if you use this exercise, it is an opportunity for him to develop and practice some self-restraint, self-control, and respect for you as an authority figure. So don't look at things as a nuisance or being frustrated. Look at this, I'm going to go let him out of the kennel. I have another opportunity to help him develop a little bit of self-control. And remember, it's going to be, at first, it's going to be a bit longer. creating a situation where he can practice it, where you're not frustrated, is going to be all the difference in the world. If you start getting frustrated or he's frustrated, that's not the last thing he's going to remember about it is you were mad last time we practiced that. This is why for training, you want to keep training sessions to less than 90 seconds for teaching new tricks or commands, and they always want to end on a good one. So the last thing the dog remembered is, whatever it was. One other thing, will he roll over and give you his belly for you guys? So we had somebody who took one of our puppy classes, a dog named Rex, and the guardian really emphasized belly. Every time he roll over his belly, and they would reach over and pet him. It's a very vulnerable position. I doubt he will do it with other people around. Don't force him to do it. The way I do it is I kind of lure the dog. I first make him lay down their side, and I take the treat and I kind of lure it this way. And so he's trying to get the treat, and he goes on his back, and then I pet him. And so I'm working with one of the dogs that I have that has a dog aggression issue. So every time he rolls over, I'm petting him. I'm just like, oh, he's like, man, you're a weirdo. Every time I roll over my back, you're just all over me. And you say, belly. Well, that's a very subordinate position. So if you can teach your dog to offer that behavior and they practice doing it, they're more like, I'm not saying they're going to do it necessarily like guest on a walk, but it's even in the family of being comfortable and confident enough in my guardians to put myself in this disadvantageous position. So that's something I would do as passive training. Every time he rolls over, pet him and come up with a word that means belly. And to the point where you can say belly, he rolls over and gives it to you. Now, I'm probably forgetting a lot of little bits and pieces from the session, so I'm going to give you my personal cell phone off camera. I have probably some interesting messages if I put it here, but please let me know if you have any questions or problems. I have all these videos, and there's going to, like I said, usually I only put like 1 or 2 videos. You're going to have a cornucopia of videos. So really pick 2 or 3 of them and really practice them, and if you're having difficulty in any of them, I would like you to film it and then send me the video. Now, if you notice this camera is wide orientation. Don't keep it up and down unless there's a reason. It's easier for me to see if you're sideways because I can see kind of the surrounding area. And you want to be about this far away, maybe a little bit farther, about 10 feet away. And just give me about 30 to 60 seconds worth of him doing whatever the thing is, or you doing the focus exercise or whatever it is. People watch my videos and they still miss little pieces of it. So if it doesn't seem to be going right, I'd rather have, I can check your work this way by watching some videos without having to come back for it. And I remember I don't charge for that, so please take advantage of me. All right, well, normally I would say that this is, people want to say Chico, but this is Chino, and this is Chino, and you can see a picture of him at the top. And this is his roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.